Okay, so I'm talking to you as if it was me starting out last year, and just some of the things that I've learned over the past year. And these are some questions that you want to ask yourself. So the first thing that you want to decide is what kind of robots that you want to use in your classroom. And depending on what you teach, that will depend, or I'm sorry, depending on what level you teach, that will probably depend on the robots that you use. So for example, if you're elementary, some of the robots that you may think about are the like WeDos. There's also Sphero, and I'll show you some of those here in just a few minutes. But again, it's just something that you probably want to think about. There's also the Dash and Dot robots. Those are really good for elementary. I remember whenever I was at DLC, one of the things that I encouraged for kindergarten was the Code and Go mouse. I don't know if you're familiar with that or not, but it's a really easy program to get your littles started with coding. So those are just some examples, but that's one of the things that you really need to think about is what kind of robot that you want to use with your program. Next is how you will fund the program, because obviously they cost. And just to give you an idea, the robot itself, it's like the education pack. It comes with what's called the brick, and this is the kind of the brain of the robot. The pack with the brain is like $325, I think, for one. You can also order expansion packs. Expansion packs are around $100. So that just kind of gives you an idea of as far as funding goes. There are tons and tons of funding sources out there, and I'm going to share those with you. And the ones that I'm going to share are only local to Kentucky. So there are several things several funding sources within Kentucky that you can utilize. But there are also lots of national sources, and honestly, I didn't put those on there because there are tons of them. The ones that I put, and I'll talk to you about here in just a few minutes, are only for Kentucky. So you'll see that here in just a minute whenever I explain those. And then the next thing is your time commitment. And I know I've been in education for 17 years, and I'm kind of at the point in my career where I want to spend time with my family. Past the point of, I just don't want to work 60 hours a week anymore. I want to do my job, and I want to do it effectively. But I want to be with my family. My son, he's graduated, and my daughter's going to be a freshman. I'll get choked up talking about it. Oh my gosh, because it's like, oh man, I'm about to have an empty nest, and it's so crazy. So I know that those moments are precious. So whenever I came up with the way I wanted to do this, I tried to do it so that I didn't have a lot of afternoon commitment, and I'll explain that here in just a few minutes. Also, you want to decide whether or not it's going to be a class or a club, and if you have admin that are supportive with doing either of those or both of those, or again, however you want to do that. And will you meet after school? And again, once we get to that point, I'll explain how I did it, and it was just a balance, and I've just had to learn that over the course of the 17 years I've been in education. You have to balance your professional life with your personal life, and it worked for me. Okay, so again, about the type of robots. So I'll just start at the top with Lego Robotics, because that's the robots that I use. In all honesty, it was just pure by chance, because initially I was going to start with something different. But just a little story about the Lego Robotics and how that came to be. Whenever I actually started late in the school year with the current position that I'm in as the librarian, and our DLC came to me and said, hey, we have a Lego Robotics kit if you're interested in using that in the library. And I'm like, oh my goodness, yeah. So I got it from our technology teacher who had not been using it. I'd never been open. So I grab it, I start playing with it a little bit. And so that's how I started using Lego Robotics, because it just happened to be there. So that's the one I chose. So that's the first one. The Lego Robotics is the one that's on the top left-hand side. And let's see, next is Sphero. The Sphero is down on the bottom. And again, I mean, I have 2 Spheros in the library. I teach middle school. I have 7th and 8th grade. And there are challenges that completely go with 7th and 8th grade. The ones that I chose them because, and I'm just being completely honest, all the curriculum is online and most of it's free. So I didn't want to have to reinvent the wheel. Again, I'm talking like I want my time. So all of this, it's completely free. As far as the curriculum goes, VEX might be a little bit different story. You may have to become like, have a membership maybe. I'm not for sure on that one, but I know that most of the curriculum is completely free with all of it. The next one, VEX. This is the one I had originally wanted to use, and I was the DLC in Grayson County. I actually purchased with VEX Robotics, if you're not familiar with it, there's a big ring that you purchase. It has like non-static mats that go in the ring. And the competitions with VEX, they're all over Kentucky actually. But with VEX, it's much more expensive than the Lego Robotics. So I had originally purchased the mats and the ring, and then there was a kind of like a collaboration with our middle and high school. They had agreed to buy a starter kit for me to get that going. But then I switched districts and I really didn't get a chance to play with them at all. But Hardin County has a crazy, awesome program with VEX. So if you're ever interested and you could visit them, they're really nice about it. I've gone and toured their facility. It's really, really cool. But VEX is really good for middle and high school, and there are all kinds of competitions that go with middle and high. First Robotics is also with Lego, and what you see that's linked, I have linked, the links that those take you to are to the competitions. So if you click on any of those links, it will take you to, like for example, first, it'll take you to the competitions and tell you all about the competitions and how they work. Wonder Workshop is Dash and Dot. That's the blue one. Dash is the bigger one, Dot is the smaller one. I mean, those work for middle school also. I had purchased a Dash and Dot whenever I was a DLC to use with middle school students, but it also works well with elementary. So a lot of these, you can use them through many different grade levels. And then Best Robotics is the one that's down at the bottom. I don't have a lot of experience with it. I think that maybe our high school, whenever I was in Grayson County, they had purchased some of those to use with a class, but I don't have a lot of experience with it, but I know that it has curriculum that's online that you don't have to create. So those are just the ones that I know of, and I don't know if maybe some of you that have used some robots in the past, do you all know of any that maybe I haven't mentioned? That, yes.
The Ozobots.
Ozobots, okay. I have two, maybe one or two Ozobots in the library. I just don't know if there are competitions with those. I haven't looked into it, but maybe there are. Yeah. But yeah, Ozobots, I do have those in the library. I actually use that as a station now. Anybody else have any that they know of that maybe I haven't mentioned? Yes.
We have it on the Zoom. Somebody said they use Edison.
Okay, I haven't heard of that one, and I don't know anything about it. Yes.
I use Edison, but I can talk about it first.
Okay.
So the Edisons are great. They're really good for elementary. They're gonna help your kids get into coding. They're about $50 a piece, which is a great price point. However, they do need batteries. You can start with physical coding, where it records some barcodes that the robot actually runs over the barcode, and then it will do it. So it kind of gets your kids used to that, and then you can take them once they master that and move them onto the computer, and it will teach them to drag and drop code. So it's a great building block at a really great price.
Okay. Cool. Okay, any questions about any of these? Again, I tried to give you the information as far as the links go with the different ones, and I'm basically going to focus on the Lego Robotics just because that's what I've had experience with this past year. Okay, so as far as funding is concerned, so again, I'm just going to tell kind of my story of how this all evolved from last year. So I started late in the school year. I started like mid-August in the position of the librarian at South Warren. And with my library job, there are 2 classes that I can pretty much, whatever I want to teach, I can teach. So my first period class, I decided to just have that as kind of like a book study. And we did do a book study with that class the first few weeks. And then, of course, I found out that I had this robotics kit. So I just asked the kids, I said, what would you all think about having maybe a robotics class? And some of them were like, maybe. Some were like, no, I really don't want to do that. So with my 7th period class, in the second 9 weeks, I just created a robotics class. And some of my kids that were in my first period that said they were interested, I was able to pull them and put them into that 7th period. And that's kind of where the robotics started. So it was a 45-minute class. And again, I'm just going to give you kind of my situation and how I went about doing it. I was able to choose the students that I wanted to go into that class because it was like an enrichment class. And basically it was students that, that was during like RTI also. So any student that didn't have RTI, there was kind of a pool, and they could either, like I actually went to them and said, hey, would you be interested in being in the robotics? I did have one student that came to me and said, hey, I heard that you are teaching robotics. Would you care if I joined the class? Yeah, sure, come on in. So that's how my class, that's how I built the class. And so I did teach it as a class. However, right before we competed at STLP, so right before STLP, we met for a few days after school, just so they could tweak and work on their programs and just kind of get comfortable and know, what they were doing. So we did meet some after school. So basically I ran it as more of a class, but it was kind of a club too. I guess it's kind of a hybrid class club, I guess you could say. So as far as funding, so I had one robot and actually it didn't even work and I didn't know it. I had this one student who was playing with it, and he would try to download the program to the brick. This is again kind of the brain. So he would try to download it to the brick, and it would never work. But you really don't even have to have these for the kids to code them. And you can get on the link for Lego Robotics is, if you just Google Spike EDU or Spike Education, that's the link where you can actually create the program. So they started working on programs before we even had a good robot that would even work. So once I saw there was interest and kids really did want to do this, I'm like, hey, I want them to compete. And to be honest, that was the motivation for them to do a great job. Since I said, okay, we have a competition. Actually, our district does what's called the Robot Royale. And it was like, I don't know, it was like in 2 weeks. So we started working, and we just decided we're gonna do it. So they did. But we needed more robots. But I think I had 10, maybe 12 kids maybe in the class. And I wanted them to have 3 to a team. So I went to my principal first and I said, is there any way that I can get 3 more of these? And he's like, yeah, sure. But then I found out about the TVA grant. So I applied for it, and I did hear something back within like a week, and they funded 3 more robots and expansion packs, which was crazy. So I didn't have to spend not one dime on my robots. But these are some other ways that you can get funding. So there's a KISTI outreach grant. I don't know if you all are familiar with KISTI or not, but they will award up to $10,000 per school for different programs if you're promoting technology. All you do is you basically write what you are wanting to do for your school as far as technology goes. And, I mean, and you could possibly get $10,000 for your school. There are also grants with First Robotics, Kentucky Power, and honestly, I didn't even know about this one until I started doing a little bit of research. But I think that Kentucky Power is kind of the equivalent to the Tennessee Valley Authority. It's just in a different location in Kentucky. So they also offer grants similar to the TVA grants. And then the last one is, it's like provided by the National Science Foundation, but it's through Kentucky. And again, I didn't know about this one either, but I thought, hey, I'm gonna share this with you all because I think it's pretty cool. And all of these are linked to where you can go online, and it will tell you a little bit about the grant and how to apply and all that good stuff. So I've tried to give you that information. So basically with the robots, I have spent zero money to purchase at this point. Now, next year, I may buy some expansion kits, or I don't know, I may even get another robot. I'm just gonna see how things go, but there's money out there. So if it's something that you're interested in and funding you think is a stumbling block or an issue, here's some ways that you can possibly get that funded. So I'll stop for a minute and see if there are any questions or move on. Yes.
So with Spike, is it just Chromebook friendly, or do you also have to have this like on a PC for them to get them started?
So we are strictly Chromebooks.
Okay.
So we just, there is it's through Google Play. So that's kind of a downfall, but it is online also. I guess the negative of just doing it online is that it doesn't save their program, but they can download the program to the brick and it will stay on there. But if they close out of it, then it goes away. So the advantage of having it on a Chromebook is that it will save with their Google login or whatever. Does that make sense? That's a great question though.
Did you say it was an extension or an add-on, or is
It
it
is-
based on the Chromebook?
It's, well, okay, so it is web-based on the Chromebook, but there's also an app that you can download, but it's through Google Play. And I know like with Warren County, there was, I don't know, some hoops that I had to jump through to get it because it was Google Play. It's not open to like students. That our tech team had to push it out to I guess the kids' Chromebooks. So it's a little, I mean, if your kids have access to Google Play, it's not an issue. But if they don't, then you may have to talk with your tech department to figure out how to get it on their Chromebooks. Oh, yes, I'm sorry. Thank you for saying that. It's also on the iPad. And I'll tell you why I didn't use it on the iPad, because at STLP competitions, you can't Bluetooth to your Lego robot. It has to be actually downloaded. So while that is an option, if you go to STLP and you compete, they can't use an iPad, because that's how you transfer the program from the iPad to the robot is through Bluetooth, and they don't allow you to do that. So while I did have iPads, I just didn't have the kids do that because of that one reason. But if they want to practice, that is the way they can do that. But thank you for pointing that out. There is an iPad app. It's also on your phone too. Anybody else have questions? Yes.
I have a comment. I'm in elementary and I have the like essentials, which are like this next time for the little guys, and they're great. And
Okay. Okay, I'm gonna move on. Okay, so another thing to consider is your space and time and how much that you want to dedicate to your robotics program. Again, whether or not you're gonna have as a class, or are you gonna run it after school? And I kind of explained how I did it. I feel like I have great administration at South Warren Middle. I basically just went to them and I said, hey, I'd really like to do a robotics class. What do you think about that? And they're like, that's good. How are you going to buy the robots? And I said, I don't know. Can you give me like $1,500 to buy some? And they said yes, but then once I found out, of course, about the TVA grant, I was able to get them. And then I went back to them like, guess what? You don't have to spend that money. And then they were, you know, that was pretty cool. So they did allow me to have a class. And that was phenomenal because the only drawback is the class was short. And I think even this year, those extension classes are going to be shorter. They are adding more time to our content classes. So the class is only going to be 30 minutes. But again, what I did once competition time came around, we did meet after school some, just so they could tweak and test and do some things over and above just the classroom. And I'll tell you, a competition is the way to go because it motivates them like you would not even believe. And I even had them compete against each other. And that's how we decided who would compete at competition. So we had 4 teams. The teams would write their programs. And the 2 competitions that we competed in, one was Sumo Bot. And Sumo Bot basically, and this is the funniest story, but it's true. You have a 4-foot in diameter black circle with a white line around it. And you put the robots in the middle, and it's like sumo wrestling. So one has to knock the other one out of the ring. And we didn't have a black base, I guess you could say, to even compete with or practice. So I went to Home Depot and I bought some plywood and a can of spray paint. I got out in my garage and I jigsawed that sucker and cut it out. I painted it black, and I think it's a 2-inch wide, and I only know this because I had to make one, a 2-inch wide white strip that goes around the diameter, around the edge of it. So I just made one, and it's so funny because it's not even a circle, and there's one end that will even stand up by itself, which is great. But the kids had to have something to compete with, so, you know, and had to have something to practice with. So you just gotta do what you gotta do. Yes.
Do they have the code to not to come in robots out, or just they use like the remote control?
No, there's no remote with the Spike Robotics. So it is coding. There are actually 3 different kinds of codes that they can do. So they can either do the block coding, they can do word coding, or the drag and drop.
I know this is a lot competition.
Yes.
They code that.
Yes, they do code it. Yes. So within the Lego Education app, they go in, and I can pull it up and I'll show you here in just a few minutes. They will code what they need to do. It's neat. And I'll be honest, I had dealt with coding a little bit because I had worked with Hour of Code. So it's similar, but I didn't really know a whole lot about it. I just had the kids to get on that website, and there are tutorials that they could watch on how to do different things, and they watched them and they figured it out on their own. But yes, so they code it, and then that's what the cords, so they hook up to their Chromebook once the coding is finished, and then they download it to the brick. And you can put up to 10 codes on the robots, and it's numbered, and I can show you how that works too. So they would download it to say like number 1 or number 2, and then they just hit the button and go, and it's crazy. Okay, any other questions? Yes. Okay.
What are the different robots that you can use? Are they just like Lego robots?
So yes, so I don't know if you're familiar with EV3s, but the EV3 is actually the predecessor of the Spike robot. So you can either use EV3 or you can use the Spike. They're both Lego products. And you can use any kind of Lego. You can't use anything that, like you can't glue stuff, you can't tape stuff. It has to be a Lego product that is used to build the robot. So I hope that answers your question. Anybody else? Question? Okay, so again, just something to consider is, you know, how are you going to run your robotics program? Okay, so I am going to talk about the competitions at STLP because that's just what I'm familiar with. There are other competitions out there. There are VEX competitions. I know that I want to say with Dash and Dot, there are some online competitions maybe. And if you know more about that, feel free to speak up and tell me because I haven't competed with those. But these are the different competitions that you can do with STLP. And I have a link here that goes to the rubrics so you can see exactly what you're supposed to do with those competitions. The first one is the Georgetown College robotics use. I tried to talk my kids into doing this, and I don't know, I think they were a little nervous about it. But basically what you do is you take a robot and you try to improve or make something new of something that already exists. So like some of the things that I've seen are like a prosthetic arm or, oh my goodness.
This year, the one that won was one that automatically folded a t-shirt.
Okay, yeah.
And it also would then say the color of the t-shirt when it was done folded.
Okay, so that's the kind of the premise behind the Georgetown robotics use. It's just to kind of improve on something or make, or come up with something even new using a robot. The next one is the Robo Challenge Extreme, and that's like a race. And I did not do either of these two, so I don't know a whole lot about them. But again, I have linked the rubric, and I think you can probably find more information there than I could tell you. Next, Robot Royale. This is the line follow challenge, and I'll show you our robot that we use with that. So line follow challenge, the way it works, there are different sensors whenever you're using the robots. And these are color sensors. So the robot has to follow a line, and the robot that does it in the quickest time is the winner of the competition. So that's the one that we actually won first place, which was really cool. And I'll explain a little bit how that works, but I'll tell you about the other competitions too. Spiro Hero, I tried to get another group to do this one because I think it's really cool. Spiro, I wish I would have brought one, but probably most of you all have seen those. It's just like a clear or white ball, and you program it. You can use, I think it's on iPad. It's also online, I believe. But the Spiro Hero competition, you create, or the student creates a like an obstacle course, but it also has to follow a storyline. So there has to be a protagonist and an antagonist within the obstacle course. We had come up with one about Pandora's box, but it kind of fell through, so we didn't get to finish it. But it was really a neat concept, and the things that they were going to have happen within the obstacle course. But that's a neat one. It's really easy to do too. We were making it with cardboard and duct tape and stuff like that, so it's really easy to do. And then last but not least, the kids love SumoBot. And again, I think I explained that one already. And this is I'll show you our SumoBots. We had two. Now you can only have one team at state. But again, I had my kids to compete against each other to see who would go to state. So this is one of them. This sensor is a distance sensor, and they had to program this to see like basically the distance. You do not want this, you don't want your robot to go past the white line. Okay, so it's 4 feet across. You don't want it to go past that. And also they programmed it to attack whenever it would see motion. And you can, the kids would program it based on the distance. So if it was like 6 inches in front of the sensor, then it would like go really fast and attack whatever was in front of it, it's really cool. It really is. I have a video that I'm going to show you all on how it works. Of course, there is a color sensor because with SumoBot, of course, it's black and white. So they programmed it so that if it saw white, it would like back up and turn and go in a different direction. Let's see. And these are the motors. They also have to program those motors, to go straight or backwards or whatever. So that's one of the SumoBots.
Dee Dee, I'm going to interrupt you because we have somebody on the Zoom and I'm going to invite them to unmute, and excuse me if I pronounced your name wrong, but G was telling us about another competition through Wonder Workshop using Dash.
Okay.
This is Guy. Can you all hear me? Hello?
Oh, Guy, I can hear you, but the room can't. So if you don't mind, I'll just read your comment.
That's fine.
I apologize. Friends in the room, G says that the Wonder Workshop, that was the Dash robot, has an annual virtual competition every year in the fall, and it consists of 5 different missions that the kids have to compete. They video it, they upload their code for. The missions are completed within a 5x8 grid, and you can buy the mat or just outline using tape on the floor. And as of last year, you have to buy a license to compete.
Okay. I thought that it was virtual. I just couldn't remember all the ins and outs of that one. This is am I good? I'm sorry. I just kind of started rolling. Okay. This is our other StigmaBot. This is actually the one that we competed with. And the funny story about this one. So this one, of course, you have a motor for each of your wheels, and you can program the wheels to turn in different directions. That's how you can pivot and do turns and just do some different things. There's also a motor that's in the middle here that you can program to have this little thing to flip. So the purpose of that was once the eyes would see something, it would run into it, and then we were hoping that it would flip the other robot, and we automatically win. However, this is what happens when you have a teacher that doesn't really know a lot about it. I found this code that I shared with the kids, and I said, hey, I think this is a code that you can use to make it work. Well, what happened is the code was messed up. I don't know. I just didn't know exactly what I was doing. And instead of it flipping up, it flipped down. And so it made the robot go up like this, and then the other robot got under it and flipped us over. So it was like totally wrong. But we learned, and it was really cool because then they were able to go back and adjust their program, and they got it going, but it was cool. One thing that I thought was really neat about this design, and the kids designed these. I mean, I don't have a lot of experience with that. So they decided to put these like bumpers around the wheels so that if somebody bumped into them, it wouldn't mess up the wheels, which I thought, man, that's a really neat idea. And this is the front. So it has this large, and it's really heavy too. So it would hit some of the robots and just like manhandle them. It was really cool watching the kids. Okay, so those are the SumoBots. Those are the competitions. One thing I will tell you about SumoBot, there are a couple of things I didn't realize until I read the rubrics. So it's really, really important to read those rubrics. One of the things that is mandatory is you have to have a 5-second wait program. So once the kids will have their, they'll be on the platform, they'll have their robots on, wherever they're supposed to be. When they hit this button, there has to be a 5-second wait. So that's just something to keep in mind. They have to, if they don't have that, they're automatically disqualified. So there's a 5-second wait before they can actually start battling. Another thing that I learned is there is a weight limit also. So whenever the kids go in, they have their robots, they check in, and this is with STLP, they'll check in. There's this little box that they also set the robot down in. It cannot be, I forget, I think it's 12 inches. It cannot be longer than 12 inches in either direction. So if it doesn't fit in that box, they have to either redo or, figure out something. So we just took rulers whenever we were building it and measured to make sure that we were okay. And then the weight is like 2.3 pounds, I think, but you may want to check me on that because I may be wrong. But I brought my scale from home. I just had a bathroom scale that's digital. I brought it from home, and then my husband would be like, "Where's our scale?" Like, I'm sorry, I'll bring it back. But I just brought my scale from home since it was digital. I thought, hey, that will work. And right before competition, we weighed them to make sure that we were compliant. But they do. They will weigh it and they put it in that box to make sure that you are following the guidelines. Okay, so any other questions about the competitions? I think the only thing that I could say and just kind of reiterate is just read those rubrics because they really help you. Okay, so this is the line follow competition that we did at STLP. We did compete. So STLP was in April. We also competed in March at the Robot Royale, which was in Warren County. In Warren County, we didn't do so hot. I think we were like 8th place or something like that. The kids came back, they revamped, they even rebuilt the robot. And I'll show you this. Well, let me tell you a little bit about how it works. So there you have a practice table that they can practice on first before they actually run their course. So they did do a practice. They had 3 programs that they created. And I thought this was genius. This had nothing to do with me, you all. The kids completely did this. So there was 2 girls that was on the team. One of the girls, she looked at those courses and she saw that one of the courses had, the corners were it was a little bit sharper than some of the other 2 courses. So she decided that she would run a slower program on the course that had the sharper turns, because what will happen, and here's the line follow robot. What happens is it looks for that color, and then if it's going too fast, it might get off of that color, and then you're penalized if you have to pick it up and reset it on the track. So their strategy was awesome. So let me go ahead, I'll just go ahead and play it and you can see what happens. So they have 3 chances to run, and on the second chance is when they won. So they ran the course in 18 seconds and it was faster than high school or elementary, which I thought was amazing. And with STLP, you are categorized by grade. So the elementary will have 1st and 2nd place, middle school will have 1st and 2nd, and then high school will have 1st and 2nd. And then they had this really neat board where they kept the time. So it was like real time. You knew exactly when you placed, and you'll see whenever at the end they're jumping up and down, and it's so fun. And there is no sound. Let me see if I can make it bigger so you can see. Okay, so right now, in the back where you can see some people standing at the table, they are doing their practice run. So they'll practice and then they go to the farthest table in the back and do a run. And then there's another practice table. They get to practice and kind of tweak. And then they'll do another run here. And maybe they get to practice again on the back table. And then the final run is the one that's here on the left. All right, and I don't know if you can see me or not, but I'm like right there about trying to video and they tell me I have to leave. I'm not supposed to be there. So they're about to run their first time. Oh, that's the other kids. You see them in the background like cheering them on? Yeah. We had some really enthusiastic kids too. It was great. Yeah, I think I'm gonna get kicked out in a minute. It's so exciting because they've worked so hard. Oh, that's so, yeah, there I go. Getting out of there. Okay, so notice it's a black table and then there's a white line. So she had to pick it up, and there's penalties to that. You had seconds added on. But it was going pretty cool. It was fast, and we were like, yay, it's awesome. And that's our team. Cheering them on. Okay, so that would be our first run, and then on this side, which you can't see, is the board that they would record the time. Let me see how long this is. I don't want to take too much time. So now they're gonna come back over here to the practice table and tweak.
So all of those courses are the exact same.
No, they're all different. All three of them are different.
So when you practice, you're not practicing for a specific course.
Right, right. What you're having to adjust is like your speed and your sensors.
So
What they
sensor
see.
sense the line.
Right,
Okay.
right.
What ages is this competition for?
It's actually kindergarten through 12th grade. They have winners for, there's like elementary, they'll have first and second place, middle school, they'll have first and second, and high school, they'll have a first and second place.
That's the same course for all the grades?
Yes, yes.
Can't imagine kindergartners trying to do that.
I know, but they do. It's amazing. Amy, how are we doing on time? Are we okay?
We have 30 minutes left.
Oh, okay, so,
You can use any kind of robot to do this.
no, this one is specifically Lego robots. So you can either use the EV3s or you can use the Spike robots, either one. And you have to use Legos to put it together. That was another thing I wanted to mention is, you can't duct tape, you can't use hot glue, you can't use any other materials. It can only be Lego parts that you use to build a robot. Yes.
I saw this robot rubric that said, you can only use one intelligent, right? What is that?
That's the brain that I was talking about. It's
Part of the robot that you actually download.
where you download the yellow, the white and yellow. So. Okay, I don't know what happened. Hold on. We may have been talking while oh, here we go. So they are tweaking now. So this is the practice. It's just a different angle. I'm sorry, somebody have a question? Yes.
So when they get there, they have no idea what the course is gonna be.
Exactly.
So they basically have their robot, have their device they're gonna use to do coding, and then they have to just do it.
Well, we had our programs before. We went ahead and programmed because whenever they're creating the program, it really doesn't matter what the line is like because it's the sensors that they're programming. So they're programming the sensors to see the white. And then they're also programming the speed. So it really doesn't matter what the line is, if that makes sense. It just has to follow it and not get off the line, and it has to be the fastest.
How much time do they have when they see the course? Doing final touches on the program?
Well,
Is that a time thing?
so, let me see if I can,
You can answer. Like, is there certain chunk of time they've got, or is there no time they can have it sometimes they want? Or?
well, I don't know that there's really time limits, but, I don't know, there may be, I'm not sure. Yeah.
I love from the rubric that you gave us, I told, or MTLA, and it says, they'll have approximately 10 minutes
Okay, yeah,
to tweak their code before their next round.
okay. So this is the round, this is where they won. So this is the second round that they're going. And I don't know if you can see over here, but those are the times that's up on the board. And they know right now they've won, and they're just, it's like, ah. And we actually had one more, they had one more that they could do. And it was funny, she picks up the robot, and of course they're all, it was great.
How many kids were in your class? Like, what's the manageable number for something like that?
I had 12, but honestly, I could have had more, but I didn't have enough robots. And I thought that 3 per robot would be a good number. I had one that did research to see if they could figure out the code, one that actually coded, and then the other was my builder. So I had one building, one coding, one researching, trying to figure out what to do. But now they did interchange. I mean, sometimes somebody may find an idea where they could build, and then they interchanged. Okay, so we're just celebrating over there now. So I'll move on. But I thought this might give you an idea of how, of course, we had no idea whenever we got there, how this would work. Yes. Okay.
Hey, we have another friend, Tina, on the Zoom, who says that her elementary team also competed, and they used black bulletin board paper and white duct tape to make a course at their school to test it before they went. And they got
So-
second place at state. We're very proud of you, Tina.
That's
Good job.
We actually did something similar. We took black bulletin board paper, but then I just took regular paper and just cut it and we taped it down. I mean, you just kind of do what you have to do. Okay, so questions about any of this, and you all the guidelines will be on that rubric. And again, I just can't say enough. And I even printed off those rubrics and I gave them to my kiddos so that they made sure that they had everything, like, you know, everything checked off before we got there. Oh, here we go. Okay, so this is one of our sumo bot competitions. This was, I think this was at STLP also. And notice when it sees the white, it goes away. It was awesome. And it was funny. Whenever we got there, the kids said, "Oh, this is a round competition board." And they were, you know, kind of making a little joke about me, but it was fun.
Hey, Dee Dee, I'm going to jump in and ask a question from
Okay.
Zoom. Ashley wants to know, is it safe to say that with these examples, you could essentially only buy the robots that come with a curriculum and have all you need to practice? That you don't have to buy practice tables and have a team and or practices?
Yes. And actually, to be honest, you really don't even need the robots because you can do all the coding. That's what we did. I mean, of course, we had a Doug robot when we started and we went ahead and did some of the coding. And what happened, I guess what had happened is that the kit had been sitting there for maybe a couple of years and the battery died. So I just contacted Lego and they actually sent me a new battery that I put in. So once I got when I got the other 3 robots, we competed in 2 weeks. It was crazy. And that was the Robot Royale. And then I want to say maybe 2 more weeks later is when we went to STLP. So really and truly, we didn't even have robots a little over a month maybe before we won at STLP. Here we go. Okay, so if you all want to try these out, I've tried to build in some time so that you could do that. And I'm just going to show you, this is exactly what I did with my kids. And you all, I made this in like, Amy helped me. I just made this in like 5 minutes whenever I got here. I just printed out a red and a green star, cut it out, took some poster board and made some lines. And you all are welcome to try it out if you want. And I can walk you through what to do. I'll go ahead and go to the Lego Education and kind of explain the process. But if you're welcome to try it out. If you want, I will go over it a little bit. I would suggest getting in teams of 3. So if you want to do it and you want to grab 3 people that's close to you, that would be awesome. I'll go ahead and pull this up so you can see how it works. But the links are all there on the presentation. You will have to have the Spike Lego program in order to do it. I'm just going to open this up. And the one that we have, the one that I use is the Spike Prime. So that's the one that you'll pick. And then just real quick, what I did whenever I first started out is I actually clicked where it says start. Now, this is just to learn, okay, as far as the learning, but not the coding process. So if you're just wanting to learn how it all works, these are some awesome tutorials. And the way the tutorials work, so for example, if you want to learn about the brick or the brain, you just click on it and it takes you through step by step, and like you actually have to physically do whatever it says before you can move on to the next step. So it's really, 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 really user friendly. But this tells you about, of course, the motors, the color sensor. I mean, it walks you through all the different things that you can use to build the robot. And the way I started my class is I made my kids go through all of these because I wanted them to know how to, you know, what they all did, how to program them, all that good stuff. So they had to go through all of these before we started building anything.
So the students use the same interface you use?
Yes.
Not like a teacher.
Yep. Now there is just like lesson plans that you can pull from that's on a different page, but it's all within this Spike EDU. Oh, and actually it's right here in the unit. There it is. So there are unit plans that are already created for you. Okay, I'm going to flip back over real quick. I'm going to flip back over here because I want to show you a couple things. Okay, so whenever you're programming, you're gonna want to see this because this is going to make it really easy. If you are going to program, the plan for you all to practice is basically just to go from the green star to the red star with programming the robot. But you will want to know how to pivot, curve, and point. So if you want to refer to that on your slide presentation, it'll be helpful whenever you get to that point. I just wanted to show you this. So I'm going to flip back over so I can show you how to get started. So to start, you're just going to click New Project. And then my students use the word blocks. You can, like your younger kiddos, elementary would maybe do Icon, and then high school, this is actually Python, like it's the program Python. So, I mean, if you're teaching computer science, you could use this easily because you are writing in the Python language. I'm going to go ahead and click Word Blocks and then click Create. And then that's going to get you here. So a couple of the things that you'll want to I guess just some tips. There are different, over on the slide, you have different things that you can do. So you have control, you have events, you can do sound and lights. And one of the cool things that I found out whenever I was doing this, I was telling you all that you have to have a 5-second delay before you start with SumoBot. So with the lights, you can actually have, and one of these may do it. I'll see real quick. You can have, since there's lights on your robot, it will count down and do the letter or the numbers. It'll say 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I'm going to see real quick if one of them's on here. Yeah, there it goes. And you can program it to do that. Now it's going to go, baby. So it's good if the kids go through those tutorials because they can figure out how to do all that stuff. Okay, so when program starts, one of the first things you need to do is set your motors. And to do that, you want to know which motor is plugged into which port. So there are ports that are on the brain or the brick, and they have letters beside them. So for example, this motor here is plugged into A. So I know if I need this one to move, I have to assign this motor to be A. So to do that, I am going to, I'll just pick this one. And notice there's a drop down here, and this shows you what all the different ports are. So you can choose A, B, you know, whichever one that motor is plugged into. So if it was plugged into D, I could just go over here and click D and it's going to switch it. Okay, so I'm going to set A to be 75%. And then I'm going to look at my other. So here's my other motor. And it is plugged into B. That's convenient. And there's a couple of little shortcuts that you learn as you start doing this. You can actually just duplicate this. I just did a 2-finger tap and I can duplicate that, that block. So I'm just going to duplicate it, and I'm going to set this one to B because I want both A and B to be the same speed. Does that make sense what I'm doing? I'll get on
It
that.
does happen simultaneously. Like
Yes.
A needs to.
Right. Otherwise, A, like if let's just say that one of them was at 75% and one of it was at 60, then one wheel is going to go faster than the other one. Okay. Also, now for your movement, I'm just going to drag this over. So I want this robot to go straight for, and you can also change this to inches. Anytime you see this little drop down, you can change it. And there are different options here. So you can do rotations, you can do degrees, you can do seconds. And just gonna have them move forward. Okay, so now to run my program, again, I had my kids, I didn't want them to do Bluetooth because they can't do that at STLP. So I had them connect the cord. And then there's a little place that you could just put this in. So just gonna stick that in there. Okay, so once it's connected, I can click connect. And it should find it. So there it is. I'm going to click on it and click connect. And I'm now connected to our robot. Now I'm going to go back to my project. Now here at the bottom, this is where I was telling you that you can do, you can download up to 10 programs. And if you'll notice on the brick, it has 0, which is what's showing there. So if I change this to, I can do 1, I can do it on 2, wherever. I'm going to stick with 0 right now. And then there's a little download button. So I'm going to hit download. And what that's doing is putting that program on 0, on the 0 on my brick. All right, so it should be finished. Now I can unplug it. And don't let your kids do this on tables. They'll run off and break and fall. All right, so I'm just going to start on the green. And I just want to make sure that this is on 0, and then I'll hit the button and it should go. Okay, so not bad. I made it that far. This is where now you need to flip back over and learn how to pivot and or curve or point or do some other things. Okay? So who wants to try? I want to try? Yay! Okay, I do want you to work in partners. It works so much better because you can, like one of you can tweak and the other one can tweak or whatever, and you can work on different programs. And it's so much better when you work together. And if you decide to try, I have full-size candy bars. Because I'm a teacher and I know how it works. So, all right, who would like to play? I have four mats and 4 robots. Sure. Yay! All right, I have friends today. 2 or 3 of you at least. You can have that
work
one if you
with
want.
her if she wants.
Okay. You will need, remember you'll need a cord.
Or whoever.
You're welcome. All right, who wants to play? I have full chocolate bars. And if you need help, I will do my best.
Have one of those.
Oh, are you going with somebody else?
Yes, I'm heading to the back. I'm so sorry.
No, you're good. There you go. And do you have a cord?
Her, and then I will take that one. Is that all right? Does that go with this one?
Yep, it doesn't matter.
Okay.
Okay, I have one more.
But we've only done the RCX.
I have one more. Who wants to play?
We've never done a sumo.
I promise it's so much better if you do it. And there's no judgment. I didn't know what I was doing like 9 months ago either. All right, I'm gonna leave it here in case you can change your mind. So remember, a couple things to think about. Look at where your motors are plugged in, and all you do is you just follow that cord to see where they're plugged in. That's all. That's just a little tip. Make sure you know, because so many times my kids would run their program and their inputs were wrong. And the letters are right there on top. That's how you know what's what.
Now, do you teach yours as a class during the day or is it
Yes.
all after school?
Yes, I do it as a class.
Okay.
But during competition, we do it after school.
Because that's all we get, is, 1 or 2 days a week to get state library, and then that's it. Yeah.
I mean, I thought it would be hard to do that, so I was just lucky that my principal let me have that class, you know? Yeah. You want to try?
That's when we're getting.
Okay. I'm sure that might be the coding. Should be that's not that.
Friends, I'm gonna give you the 5-minute warning. We have 5 minutes until the session ends. Don't forget to fill out the survey from the QR code. And then as you exit, they will be doing the giveaway, prize giveaways, announcements and the lottery. 5 minutes. 5 minutes. Okay, now this and it'll say that this is the connect. And then start on your green. Or you can actually, because it's down. Well, no, if you don't. Okay, so I would check. I'll show you. So this folder here, you want to make sure. Yeah. Yes, I had this mistake. So you're gonna have a B and a B. Okay, I thought that was weird. This is weird. But I've already bring them already.
Oh, sorry.
I'm sorry. Curves and gentle, if it is a. It's not. Oh, okay, one of my sheets, the other side. It's pretty much this is it's how much is the, how much are you moving per week? Let's see how much this actually rotates.
How do you do it? Okay.
It's the degrees of the wheel itself. So if you move the wheel 90 degrees.
So you don't miss, okay? Yeah. I think the kids do. Yeah, I'm thinking about chocolate.
I have different stuff, so.